Hi, it's Dr Natalie from Dr GoFigure, and this episode is all about the microbiome. Now, for any of you eagle-eared listeners, then you may be aware we've already talked about the microbiome, but don't worry, I am not repeating myself. I thought that was kind of a quick view of what the microbiome is and why is it important. And now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of actually, is yours healthy or not? And if it's not healthy, what can we do about it? So as a quick recap, the microbiome are the bugs, the bacteria, the viruses that sit within our alimentary canal, which is basically from your mouth all the way through to your anus, and they are in charge of taking nutrients out of food, breaking down proteins and fibers, helping with our immune response, really good for mental health. And so it's vitally important that we have a well-functioning microbiome. And I thought, you know what, in the last episode that I did on the microbiome, we didn't really talk about, well, what does a healthy functioning microbiome look like? Well, if your microbiome's not working properly, then you will be somebody that's probably got a lot of IBS-like symptoms. So you could have gas, bloating, tummy aches, diarrhea, constipation, any of those quite uncomfortable, nasty sort of tummy troubles that we get. So let's have a bit of a deeper dive into the microbiome, how to recognise if yours is or isn't working that well, and the kind of things that we could do to get into better shape. So I know Salt and Pepper wrote a song, and it wasn't "Let's talk about poo, baby," but that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Okay, it's not a favourite topic of conversation unless you're 9, but it's important for us to understand, what does normal healthy poo look like? Okay, so first of all, normal poo, you should be pooing maybe 1 to 3 times a day, but no more than that. And you should be trying to go daily as well. Okay. The poo actually should be quite sort of smooth and silky when it comes through. It shouldn't be causing you pain. If you have poo that is too hard, if it's hard and if you feel like you're having to force it through, or it's coming through in small little nuggets, that means that you are constipated or dehydrated. So they could be little warning signs that you need to start drinking more water, because that's going to basically lubricate your feces when it comes through. Or think about adding more fibre into your diet, because it's the fibre, so fibre that you'd find in apples and vegetables, it's that fibre that's quite difficult to digest. And what happens with the fibre as it comes through your gut has to work really hard to digest it. So your gut works through something called peristaltic waves, which is literally, your gut does this. It just squeezes food through. If you're eating lots of white bread that doesn't have very much fibre in, then your gut's not working very hard. And as a consequence, things get quite stodgy up in there. If you start taking a lot more fibre, then the gut has to really push that fibre through, work much, much harder. That's good for your gut, because it starts to clean the gut through. Instead of leaving bits of stodge all over the wall of the gut now starts to clean itself through. And you should find that your poo would be a bit more bulky, but also come through more quickly because you've got more fibre, so it's not getting stuck. So how long should it take for food that you've eaten to basically pass all the way through your gut? There's no hard and fast rules. I think they think about an average is about 28 hours. And as long as you're roughly around that, then you're fine. If you've got a very fast gut transit time, then that might mean that you're not really absorbing all the nutrients properly. And if you find that you're not going for days on end, then that's also a problem too. So like I said, if you're finding constipation is an issue, then drinking more water, eating more fibre can help, and also actually taking some magnesium can help too. But I would caveat that with actually having a chat with your doctor to make sure that you're somebody that can tolerate magnesium. And there's a great magnesium and vitamin C together can be very powerful to get the gut working again. The other thing that gets the gut working again, and we get this told this all the time, is the emerald laser, which obviously we use as part of Dr GoFigure. Because it's putting energy back into the body, it's also putting energy into the cells around the gut. And if you're somebody that struggles to go to the toilet regularly, so many of my patients have come and told me delightedly that they're no longer constipated. So the emerald laser is also good for gut health and for constipation. Here's a pop question for all you 9-year-olds listening. How often should you, let's say, fart every single day? Well, the truth is it's actually a very normal human activity, and you should basically be passing wind somewhere between 10 and 20 times a day. If you're somebody that's passing way more than that, then you again need to look at your diet. And again, if you're getting gassy or bloated, it means that you could be having some digestive issues. And if they're causing you a lot of pain and problems, then at that point, definitely go and see your doctor about it too. But on average, it should be somewhere between 10 and 20 times that we pass wind every day. And it's normal. And actually, it's not healthy to try and hold it in either. That can cause an awful lot of stomach pain and problems afterwards. So I'm afraid sometimes, as they say, it's better out than in. And the other thing about basically having a lot of gas is that sometimes it's caused because we're not giving ourselves enough time to digest the meal that was in your tummy before adding more into it. So you've got partially digested food, then you eat again within just say a couple of hours, put more in, and what you'll find is that you'll probably end up being quite bloated because you've still got partially digested food in your body. Now, there's definitely certain foods that make people pass wind more, and obviously beans and pulses and lentils, they're a definite one for many people that they try to avoid. You don't really want to avoid them. Actually, what you want to do is get used to these kind of foods because they are so full of fibre. So if you're somebody that does start passing a lot more wind because you've been eating the beans or the lentils or cabbage, then what you need to do is introduce them to your diet more frequently, but in small amounts so that your body gets used to it. Your body will get used to digesting these foods, but you do need to introduce them and basically don't avoid them because they are really healthy. Have you ever heard about leaky gut? It's becoming more of a thing because we're becoming more aware of it. And some people will definitely know what I'm talking about, and some people won't have a clue what I'm talking about. But fundamentally, inside of the gut is basically all of your cells are nicely interlinked together, nice and tight, because when we eat the food, it is supposed to stay within the gut wall and it's supposed to get digested and dealt with within the gut wall. But what happens, and we're finding this is increasingly happening, is that people live very stressful or unhealthy lifestyles. And the impact on the gut is that the gut wall becomes permeable. So these little tight junctions start to move apart, and before you know it, you've got gaps in the gut wall, and then all the toxins that are supposed to stay in the gut and either be digested or eliminated, they will start to move outside of the gut wall. Some of the complaints that are associated with leaky gut would be things like migraines, eczema, some of the autoimmune diseases, a lot of the arthritises, because what happens is all of this inflammation is now escaping from the gut and it starts to move around the body. So people that notice if their arthritis is getting worse, it could partly be to do with how well is your digestive tract working at the moment. So what are the causes of leaky gut? It would be things like potentially, not to everybody, but for some people, gluten is not well tolerated and dairy is not well tolerated. Soy, any of these food intolerances could well be a signal that, or well be creating leaky gut for you. Very high stress is associated with it, and then lots of over-the-counter medications. Antibiotics are terrible for our gut because whilst we take them to kill off what we would perceive as the bad bacteria, inside the gut they just kill off everything. So they're going to massively diminish your bacteria in the gut. So any time that you have to take antibiotics, you must afterwards try and get as much pro and prebiotic back into your system as possible, because you need to basically build your gut back up again. So over-the-counter medications, especially pain medications, are also bad for our microbiome. They will basically start to ruin it or diminish it. And I know loads of people that, anytime they've got a slight headache or whatever, the first thing is they'll take a paracetamol or ibuprofen or any of these things. But just to have a little rethink about it, because if you honestly could get away with that bit of pain that you're in, you are doing your microbiome a massive favour by not always reaching for pain medication. So just bear that one in mind. And people who are using a lot of pain medication probably will find that they've got quite a lot of gut symptoms to go alongside it, and probably haven't put the two things together. So this is all quite new research coming out, and we just now need to make people much more aware that anytime we take medication, it will have an effect somewhere in your body, and it's not always the positive effects. A lot of the times it's these side effects. Okay, so there's quite a lot of disease or symptoms associated with leaky gut. So obviously the bowel symptoms would be your number one. By the way, if you've had bowel symptoms for some time, the first port of call must be the GP. You've just got to make sure that you haven't missed anything thinking that it's leaky gut. But it will be diarrhea, constipation, bloating, things like that. They're all associated with leaky gut. Having a poor immune system is associated with leaky gut too. So if you're finding that you've always got coughs or colds or feeling run down or anything that's out there you always catch, then you need to have a think about your digestive health, because it could be leaky gut that's causing some of your problems. Like I said before, it's also associated with the autoimmune diseases like lupus, celiac disease, the arthritises. These can all be associated with leaky gut, and I think it's exciting that you think potentially you've got a disease that's just going to be a long-term degeneration, where in actual fact, maybe by looking at your diet and thinking more about the foods that you're eating and wanting to repair your gut could mean that you see a massive reduction in symptoms. Headaches, memory loss, tiredness, all associated with leaky gut. And I think that I get so many patients who have chronic headaches or migraines and things like this. And again, I think it's just really heartening to think that there's actually so much that we could do ourselves to fix our health, rather than always looking for some extrinsic factor that could be causing that headache. I know for a fact lots and lots of women will be struggling with headaches going through menopause, and yes, it could certainly be to do with our changing hormones, but it could also be to do with our diet. And by basically spending more time thinking about our diet and what we're putting into our body, we could actually just be benefiting from better health just generally. And then another biggie for leaky gut could be things like anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD. All of these things could be to do with the fact we haven't got a really well-functioning gut. So now I've told you all the things that go wrong when we don't have a good, well-functioning gut. I think it's only right now that we start talking about, well, how do we improve gut health? Okay, so in order to keep this really simple, the best way to improve our gut health is to eat a healthy diet. And a healthy diet, I think if you're going to serve a plate of food, about 50% of that should be vegetable. So, for years and years, I was that person that would have had, some chicken or fish and some broccoli and carrots, thinking that broccoli and carrots was great because that's my vegetables. It is great, it's my vegetables, it's got some fibre and nutrients, but it's not going to make my gut diverse. The only way for me to make my gut bacteria diverse, which is a healthy gut, is to basically eat loads of different vegetables. Think about, you've got your peppers, your onions, you have got your, obviously the broccoli, the beans, the okras, peppers, whatever you can think of, whatever you see on the supermarket shelves, lots of different coloured food. Just basically go for it and start experimenting and eating much, much more widely. The more vegetables you use, the different types of vegetable you use, it's all improving your gut bacteria. You also want to be thinking about the seeds and the nuts. When you're thinking about dairy, some people can't tolerate dairy, but also be thinking about, if you can tolerate dairy, think about the cultured dairy. So all of those ones that tell you that they've got loads and loads of active bacteria in, they're definitely what you want to be having in your food. So for me now, in my breakfast, I've completely changed. I used to have porridge for breakfast every morning with some milk. But obviously that's probably too much carbohydrate for me, not doing enough exercise. So now I've gone on to a cultured yogurt. So A, it's great for my gut, but B, it's also full of protein. And it's making these changes that will actually improve your gut health too. Flavouring your food with loads of different herbs and spices is also great for your gut. And think about, it's not to everybody's taste, but bone broth soups, making chicken stocks, that's really healthy for maintaining or creating a really good gut. I'll do that one again. I lost my train of thought. It's not popular with everybody, but things like a bone broth soup is really important. It's very nourishing to the gut. It's got massive amounts of different bacteria in them, and that's really what you want. You want to be thinking, don't stick to a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday meal if you can avoid it. Start experimenting, bring loads of different types of food in, because it will all help with your gut bacteria. It's all about diversification. It's about the number of different types of bacteria that you've got, and how diverse they are. Now, I think scientists have found that we've got about 1,000. There's 1,000 different strains of bacteria that make up people's microbiome. But by and large, the average number that anybody will have will be 160. So out of that 1,000, most of us have got around about 160 different bacteria strains. Could all be completely different, would depend on whereabouts you live in the world, what your diet looks like. It could all be completely different, but we don't tend to have many more than about 160. If you have a very limited number of bacteria, that's when we start running into troubles. So basically, this is your opportunity to experiment, try loads of different new foods, hopefully find some new foods that you absolutely love, and just really enjoy the journey into a wider bacteria gut diversity. What a mouthful. So apart from eating a lovely, basically fresh food, healthy food diet, how else are we going to repair our gut? It'd be things like don't eat processed food, reduce the amount of sugars that you're taking in your diet. Probiotics and prebiotics are really important. Fermented foods are really important for gut health. Every time you eat something like sauerkraut or kimchi, or even drink the kombucha, then basically it's kind of like you're just feeding your gut. That's really what the function of those fermented foods are. And then taking probiotics and prebiotics will also help to just improve the quality and quantity of bacteria that you have in your gut. Have a think about how many antacids that you're taking. If you're somebody that's really struggled with heartburn or digestion issues, I know lots of people will just be downing antacids all the time, but they do weaken your stomach acid, and you do need your stomach acid to help fight off the bad bacteria. So taking a lot of antacids is actually probably going to make leaky gut worse. I mean, the fundamentals always of anything that we're talking about when it comes to our health I think it honestly all starts with a healthy diet. It starts with, thinking about what you're eating, trying to eat as much fruit and vegetables as you can, eat as widely as you can, and just be really sensible. Try and avoid the processed foods, try and avoid the sugars. Don't supplement sugars with sweeteners. They're appalling. Okay, maybe I should do a whole podcast on just how bad sweeteners are. You're probably better off with a little bit of sugar until you wean yourself off it. But it will always be about just a really good, healthy diet. And that can honestly help us in so many ways. We can take ourselves out of a diseased state into a healthy state, honestly, just through eating really good food. So anyway, as always, I like to give you a little bit of homework. The homework this week would be to go to the supermarket and take some vegetables that you wouldn't normally eat and start using them in salads or casseroles or whichever way you want to cook them, and just start experimenting with completely different foods that you wouldn't normally, because your gut is going to love it. So until next week, have a very happy and healthy week. Remember, if you like what you see, then please like, share and follow, and you can keep up to date with absolutely everything that we do.